Hi, welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to be talking about the different therapies that are available for kids with autism. Sometimes, especially with new parents, we aren't really sure what each therapy is going to provide for our child, and there's also some hesitation around certain therapies. So I'm just going to be going into detail about each therapy so that you can figure out which one is best for you and your family. The first one we're going to be talking about is speech therapy. And this is by far the most easily accessible therapy that there is for kids with special needs. And what speech therapy is for, it addresses speech, of course, language, communication, but it also addresses swallowing disorders and oral fixation. So what that is if your child has a tendency to chew or suck on different things, so chewing on their clothes, sucking their thumb, or chewing on metal keys and things like that, speech is going to be the area where they work on that and getting your child either to transition to a more suitable thing like a sensory chewy or something like that, or getting them off the habit altogether. If your child also has dysphagia, swallowing disorder, this will be the place where you could go to, either there or feeding therapy, where they can work with your child on building their oral motor muscles. So why I say speech is the most easily accessible of the therapies is because it is offered in schools, in a lot of public schools. It is offered to kids who have IEPs, and the parents do not have to pay for that in any way. It is also offered in offices that is usually covered by most insurances. They also offer virtual speech, which is very good for parents who may work full time and they cannot take their child to a speech appointment. Some of the things that they will work with your child on is, of course, social situations. If your child is nonverbal, helping them to either communicate verbally or find alternative methods of communication like sign language or speech tablets or pictures. So for any child that has any type of speech delay, I would definitely recommend speech therapy for them. The next one that we're going to be talking about is applied behavioral analysis therapy, which is also known as ABA therapy. And I think of ABA therapy as a all-in-one therapy. It covers a wide range of issues that a child may be dealing with. It is usually covered by insurance. However, a lot of the major insurances will require a diagnosis before they will cover ABA therapy for your child. And even with insurance, I will say that ABA therapy can still be very expensive. You will more than likely still have to pay out of pocket for this. So the main purpose of ABA therapy is to correct any problem behaviors that your child may have. Now, when I say problem behaviors, I do not mean stimming. Stimming is not a problem behavior. That is something that people do to self-regulate their emotions. So if they are overstimulated, they may flap their hands or rock back and forth. All of that stimming behavior is not a negative behavior, and it should not be encouraged for autistic people or neurodivergents to not stim. This is what we refer to as masking. And masking can lead to a whole host of other issues down the line. So when I say negative behaviors, what I mean is if your child has tantrums because they aren't getting what they want in they're not actually asking for what they want. So ABA therapy is going to encourage them to ask for what they want, use their words to get what they want, as opposed to throwing a tantrum. The things that they will work on with your child are potty training, sitting at a table, completing assignments, puzzles, writing, responding to their name, and also verbally communicating when they want something, asking for things instead of leading you to what they want. All of these are things that a behavioral technician will work with your child on. Now, what they're also going to do is parent training. Some people, they're kind of averse to the whole parent training thing, but if you are if this is your first child with autism and you are new to the whole world of autism, parent training can be very beneficial. What they're going to do is show you how to recognize signs that your child is overstimulated. They're also going to help you to implement some of the tactics that they use into your daily life so that your child is constantly learning even when the ABA therapist or the technician is not there. Some of the disadvantages of ABA therapy is, like I said, it is expensive. Another disadvantage is that behavior technicians, the people who actually come to your house and work with your child, sometimes they can be unreliable. And there is currently a shortage of licensed or registered behavior technicians. So you can end up on a long waiting list for ABA therapy. We were on the wait list for, I'd say, about 6 months before we got a technician, and we still ended up having to switch technicians because the one that we had was unreliable. Another disadvantage is that ABA is a big time commitment. The average ABA therapy hours are 20 to 25 hours a week. And that can also go up to as much as 40 hours a week. Because ABA is usually in the home and not at a center. Sometimes they do have them at centers, but for the most part, if you are looking at 20 to 25 hours, this is going to be in your home. And the parent has to be available during these times. It is not like with speech therapy where you drop your child off or you wait out in the waiting room while the therapist takes your child back and works with them. You have to be available because of the parent training portion of this. So they want you to observe all of this and to be essentially taking note of how to help your child. So just keep that in mind, that ABA therapy, while it is convenient for it to be in your home, you don't have to go anywhere, but you do have to be available. Last disadvantage that I am going to discuss on ABA therapy is the potential for emotional distress or encouragement of masking. That is something that I'm assuming that parents have encountered. I personally have not had this experience with our ABA therapists, but I imagine in the past some ABA therapists have discouraged stimming, and that has led to kids not being able to self-regulate. And I take that as more of an environmental problem. As the parents, you have a lot of say in the goals that are set for your child. And if you are noticing that these goals are upsetting your child in some way, then I really encourage you to have a conversation with the therapist and express your concerns. Just advocate for your child as much as possible. And I think that is the best way to avoid this problem here. The next therapy we're going to be talking about is occupational therapy. And occupational therapy focuses more on self-care and independence. So learning to dress yourself, feed yourself, and do the things that a parent would normally do, but the child is being taught to do these things for themselves. Occupational therapy is generally covered by insurance, and if your child has an IEP, a lot of public schools have occupational therapists there, so you can get the services for free through a public school. Like I said, they're going to teach your child how to care for themselves, bathing themselves, dressing themselves, going to the potty on their own, but they're also going to work on the fine and gross motor skills. Fine motor being muscles in the hands, so learning to grip a pencil, learning to write properly and legibly, and gross motor being the muscles in the rest of the body. So if your child toe walks, they are going to try to help your child to get off their toes and walk in a more structured way. And because occupational therapy focuses on self-care and independence, another thing that they will work on with your child is adaptive strategies, visual schedules that will help them to understand timing and getting to the places that they need to be, them understanding what their daily schedule looks like. So some of the disadvantages for occupational therapy is that for some people it may not be as effective, which can lead to frustration for them, specifically the sensory processing. If the methods that they have implemented are still not helping, if your child is still being overstimulated, then they can get frustrated with the process. It takes time to really understand what a child is dealing with, especially if that child is nonverbal. And during that time, they are being overstimulated on the regular. So occupational therapy is offered in home, but that is not the norm. I will say most occupational therapists either work in office or in a school setting. So that is one disadvantage there, is that unlike ABA therapy, you may not get the convenience of the occupational therapist coming to your house. Like ABA therapy, occupational therapy can be expensive, especially if your insurance does not cover it. Unlike speech therapy, it is not a given that private insurance will cover occupational therapy. And there are long wait lists due to a shortage of qualified therapists. ABA therapy and occupational therapy have a lot of overlap and similarities. They both help with self-care and hygiene and communication, social skills, and adapting to a schedule. And this can lead to some confusion on which one is best for you. The differences between them are what is going to help you to decide on that. ABA therapy is specifically for people with autism, whereas occupational therapy covers a lot of different disorders. This also leads to long wait lists because you have a larger pool of clients with occupational therapy. So just keep that in mind. The other difference, like I said, ABA therapy is normally in home or in office. Occupational is normally in office or in school settings. So if you are looking for a therapist to come to your home and work with your child, then I would say ABA therapy is more for you than occupational. And the last difference is that ABA therapy focuses on correcting negative behavior that is hindering the child's development, and occupational focuses on improving the functional skills and learning new skills. So if your child has a problem behavior like thumb sucking, head banging, or tantrums, meltdowns, and things like that, I would say that you should probably get them an ABA therapist. The next therapy I'm going to be discussing is Lego therapy. This is a form of play therapy, and play therapy is a child-led therapy. It is where the therapist is basically there to mediate and to direct the social situation. But whatever the child gravitates towards as far as play, that is what they will be doing for that day. Play therapy is also referred to as a social group where child psychologists will oversee a group of children who play together. And this is to facilitate communication and improve their relationship building skills and just help with emotional growth. So Lego therapy specifically has been shown to help with nonverbal communication and problem solving, sharing, listening, as well as fine motor skills. Like I said, those muscles in the hands and fingers. Normally, play therapy or social groups are not covered by insurance, and they can be expensive, ranging from $60 to $120 per session. Our oldest son was in a social group for a little while, and that was once a week for $65 per session. So just keep that in mind, that these social groups, they can be expensive. However, if you are homeschooling, this is a really good way to get therapy and the social aspect in one. The next therapy is music therapy. And this is a more structured way of improving communication skills, and it has been shown to reduce anxiety in children as well as enhance their social behavior. They're learning to express their emotions either through singing, playing an instrument, or writing songs. Playing an instrument can also help with interpreting sensory information. Your child has a sensitivity to sound, then playing an instrument can help them to not be as sensitive to unexpected sounds. Playing an instrument also helps to strengthen fine and gross motor skills, and it also helps with memory skills. So music therapy is not going to be something that's going to be covered by insurance. However, it does not need to be as structured. I would say putting your child in orchestra in their school or in band would be just as beneficial as finding a licensed music therapist. The last therapy I'm going to be talking about is equestrian therapy or horse therapy. This is basically horseback riding. While it is a more unique therapy, it is very beneficial for kids on the spectrum. It helps with emotional regulation and gross motor skills. It helps to build self-esteem and trust in children, especially nonverbal kids. Horseback riding is a good way to get your child out of the house if that is a concern of yours. It is a great form of exercise. It helps improve balance and core strength. And like I said, it is just a very peaceful experience for kids with autism. This is my oldest son in the picture when he was doing horseback riding. And he loved it. He looked forward to it each week, his riding lessons. Of course, it's not going to be something that insurance covers. And if you are in a urban setting like a city, then it's going to be a little more difficult to find a horse ranch around you. But if you are somewhere near a horse ranch, or you have seen horses around you, I would just say reach out to the people and just see if they will offer some lessons for your child. That is what we did, and the guy, he gave Isaiah free horse riding lessons in exchange for Isaiah just feeding his horse and brushing it. So it never hurts to just ask and reach out. I would say don't let the fear of the cost of horse riding lessons keep you from, asking about it. So just to recap, some of the therapies that we went over were speech, ABA therapy, occupational therapy, Lego or play therapy, music therapy, and horse therapy. Speech therapy is going to be what I recommend for any child who has a speech delay, or if they have issues with swallowing, chewing, or thumb sucking. It is offered virtually in office and in school. And if your child has an IEP, then you can get the speech services for free. ABA therapy is your all-in-one therapy. It is offered in-home where the therapist comes to your house. It can be expensive, even with insurance, but it is a very good therapy for first-time parents of children with autism. Occupational therapy is offered in home, but that is not the norm. Usually it's going to be in an in-office setting or in school. If your child has an IEP, then occupational therapy can be given to them for free through the school system. And this focuses on self-care and the life skills. So potty training, dressing yourself, feeding yourself, but also gross motor skills like walking and running. So if your child has toe walks, then occupational therapy may be for you. Lego or play therapy or social groups, they are not usually covered by insurance, but they are a less structured and child-led environment, which can help your child really come to enjoy therapy because it doesn't feel like school or work. It feels like them going somewhere to play with their friends. And it definitely helps with social development and building relationships, as well as strengthening fine motor skills. Music therapy is a great way for nonverbal kids to communicate, either through instrumentation or songwriting. It helps with sensory interpretation, and it also improves fine and gross motor skills, as well as memory. Horse therapy is a very calming and peaceful environment where children can be outside and interacting with animals. It is helpful for reducing anxiety, as well as building self-esteem in kids, which could lead to communication for nonverbal children. It's also a great form of exercise, and it teaches responsibility. While horse therapy is going to be a niche and somewhat difficult to find therapy if you are in the city, if you are in a rural area where there are farms and horse ranches around, horse therapy is going to be really beneficial for your child. So that is all that I have for today. If you'd like to download this PDF, you can get it at my Etsy shop, the AS Family. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.